I am the president. We are excited to get this process going. We know that we're not really going to be diving into money yet today, but it's open book for our support professionals. So we're looking forward to kind of throwing around a couple of ideas that we've had and getting this ball rolling. As always, I remind everybody to put your phone on so that way we have that, and then allow our bargaining agents here to do their job. I know the air conditioner gets a little loud in here, so if you need some clarity, just raise your hand and we'll kind of repeat where we're at. So with that, I think we could begin with introductions. Obviously, I'm Rob, and here's our great VP, Regina.
Regina Gambrell, Vice President.
I'm Britt Wegman, the Executive Director and Chief Negotiator.
Valerie Tuchman, Secretary Treasurer.
Mindy Kurzweil, Paraprofessional.
Carol Butts, Staff Nurse.
Derek Bullitt, Cypress Creek Paraprofessional.
Shirley Brown, kindergarten assistant, Boston Elementary.
Secretary one.
Data processor, Martel, Cynthia. I'm Smita Thomas Johnson, I'm the financial administrator.
Kathy Butler, bookkeeper, Mayor Fellowship. Angela Fizocher from Head Start, assistant teacher, also secretary.
All right, we'll pass it over to district team.
All right, I'm Danielle Shotwell. I am General Manager and I am the Chief Negotiator. Go down this way first.
Jamie Lewis, CFO.
Susan Garcia, General Manager of Budget.
Becky Reineke, General Manager of Staffing Allocations.
Cynthia Simmons, principal at Bryan Elementary School in Plant City.
Chris Berry, principal at Young Middle Agnes.
Charm Patton, Human Resources.
Tracy Schatz for the Human Resources Employee Benefits. Kelly King, professional standards. Cassie Smallman, principal at Cedar K8.
Jake Russell, Principal at Chandler.
And then we've got our tech support.
David Peacock, HCTA staff.
Very good, cool. All right, so just as a review too, Article 27 of the ESP contract shows that the contract is up for expiration, so that's why we're here. We did a 2-year agreement in the last book because we wanted to try to stagger the ESP and the instructional contract because that was a heavy lift that year to do both contracts. So we're trying to get them on an off year. So this year, even though we discuss money items every year, so we will cover that, but we will also include non-money items, which is what we plan to cover most today. There's going to be a few things tied to money, but we know that may have to come later, and we will also have more robust compensation proposals after the budget comes from Tallahassee and the district's able to get your information, and typically you all do a nice presentation for us, and we'll have that at a later time. And just a note too that we are again working on a PERC unit clarification. Feel like they're always going on, thanks to a lot of changes in the law that require our units to be clarified for elections and those sorts of things for, and PERC is our Public Employee Relations Commission. So you'll see in the packet when we get to it that we are waiting for some of those to be finalized, and so those may come later. So we'll keep you up to date on that. So with that, our major topics are initial language proposals, and then we'll also get into money things later. So any questions? How does that sound to you? Is there anything we need to cover? Or?
No, I think that's perfect. And
Okay.
yeah, you did a great job explaining it.
Yeah, okay. I think one thing we'll say too, I know we've got a lot of new folks on our team, new faces for you all. Typically the way we work is we'll work through all of the proposals. We'll try our best to explain. We may, sometimes if you all have questions at the time, we can discuss them. It's okay to not. And then we will oftentimes go into what we call a caucus, which is where, okay, district team or union team need to take a moment to discuss and look at proposals. And those are closed, those are not open to the public, so recording stops. You all have a room down on 3rd floor, that's for you all. And typically the way we work caucus is we try to tell each other, hey, we're gonna need about 30 minutes or an hour, or hey, let's caucus for the day because we need to go back and do more work. That way folks that are watching, or we're not just sitting waiting. And if let's say we set a caucus for 30 minutes and then hey, we need a little more time, Danielle and your team are good with letting us know, and vice versa. If there's anything what we call a sidebar, which may need, hey, Danielle and Dr. Patton or CFO or the officers and I need to just have like a quick sidebar for some clarification, Sidebars, typically we come back and then let everyone know this is what happened. Caucuses we don't have to share that information. And I know there's lots of note taking and things like that, so we try to keep that chatter down. Everyone's got sticky notes, we have extra sticky notes, so always feel free to pass notes and that sort of thing, because sometimes it can get distracting when we're sitting here and somebody's got something to say, but all right, cool.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, you explained well that we did review open book with the ESP contract 2 years ago. Due to delays with, honestly, it was COVID impasse. We had certain things where we ended up doing both books at the same time, and that was a lot. So I'm glad that we came back after 2 years.
Yeah.
And the good thing is that it was just 2 years ago that we went over the language. So I look forward to seeing anything that you are proposing today.
Yeah, all right, so what we prepared is a packet, and it's a lot, and my goal is to try to walk through it all, to get it all on the table. And of course, if we need to break, but I'm gonna give it all to you. And then usually what we do too is our electronic document, I share that with Danielle so that you can look at it, make counters and that sort of thing. So I'm gonna I'll start passing these over to you.
Okay.
There should be enough if we need more left.
All right. Stack going that way. We'll see what we do here.
Yeah.
Stack this way.
And while that's passing, I just want to also make a note about the agenda. The agenda, usually we prepare that a few days ahead of time. Danielle and her office get a chance to look at it and contribute if there's ever any corrections. Danielle is good in catching some typos, but that way, that way both sides have the ability to address the agenda. It's not just a one-sided, this is what we're doing, HCTA says so. Both parties have the ability to address and give input on the agenda. All right, so we'll jump into it. So cover page, we're proposing again that this will now be a 3-year agreement. Again, our last contract was 2 years, but the maximum in the state of Florida is 3 years. We can't do, even if we'd want to, we love to do, hey, let's do a 5-year agreement. We are restricted in Florida for only doing a 3-year agreement. So that's our update there, that it'll be a 3-year agreement. Page 2, we tried to do some initial editing there on names of folks. We know we'll get all your names in your counter. You let us know. We can get those all updated and make sure names are spelled correctly for the school board and their team. We've gone through and done some updates to our team and our governance here at HCTA. That's there for you. I'm not going to read all the names right now. I think that should be self-explanatory. And then some minor staff updates there for HCTA. And then we have the table of contents as a kind of a hold, because we know as we edit things, page numbers can change. And you'll see, we'll get to it, but we are proposing a new appendix this year. So, but we'll get there. All right. This should all be super easy right now, the first few pages. Pages 6 and 7 and 8, these all deal with the recognition. I just put a note there that we're holding these sections for the clerical bargaining unit and the paraprofessional bargaining unit. Like I mentioned, we're doing a unit clarification. So we're just holding this, that we may come back and have just some minor changes to job titles that are here. Over the years, there's been positions added or retitled, and we all work well together, and we all know, and the district does a good job of having those in the salary book and job descriptions, but we haven't always done a good job of making sure this matches, and then also making sure PERC has a record of who those positions are. And now more than ever, due to law changes, it's very important. So we just want to let you know that's why we're holding on these spots. And we've done some work on this, but I think it's an ever ongoing thing. So we'll skip ahead to page 9. Hopefully this will be an easy TA. TA is a tentative agreement, by the way, and I'm going to interject some more education on this. A tentative agreement is that both parties say, all right, at the table, we agree. This is the change we want to make in the contract. The district negotiator and the union negotiator will date and initial that as a written agreement that we agree at the table, but it's not implemented. It's not actually enforceable until both parties ratify and approve. So the union conducts a ratification vote where all employees, not just union members, all employees have the opportunity to vote on those tentative agreements. Again, both parties are saying, we agree, this is what we want. Employees have the ability to say, yes, this is what we want. And then that goes to the school board, and then the school board has their process for approval. Once that's all done, then we go to work, putting it all into place and catching each other's typos and making sure it's all clear, and then that book is signed, and then that's what you get at your work sites and online. So we're hoping that this will be an easy tentative agreement. This on page 6 here, or sorry, page 9. Just in the definition of ESP, what we talk about is an educational support professional, the contractual reference to all members of the clerical and paraprofessional bargaining units, which are all those positions listed. We just wanted to capitalize clerical because paraprofessionals was capitalized, or, you know, one or the other. We're gonna capitalize both or not. So our
No
proposal
other
is to
explanation
capitalize.
needed.
All right.
All right.
So there you go. All right, so now we're gonna dig into some in-depth language dealing with our drug and alcohol-free workplace and substance abuse. We did some work last contract book on updating the policy. But we have some language proposals here just to give some clarity to employees on what some of these things mean. And we'll just get into it and I'll walk through it. And if there's anything that needs clarification as we go, just let me know. So we're proposing a new section here called definitions. We want to define illegal controlled substances means any controlled substance as defined in section 893.03 Florida statutes as amended from time to time, not possessed or taken in accordance with a lawful prescription. If you look at that statute, it's got everything listed there, like all the different schedules of what these controlled substances are. And I'm sure your legal will want to look at that and all that good stuff, but we wanted to just be clear on what that is. The Department of Health and Human Service mandatory guidelines for federal workplace drug testing program. That means those guidelines initially printed in the April 11th, 1988 Federal Register, 53 FR 11970. And as they may be amended from time to time. So this initially came in 1988, but it has definitely been amended. It's updated. So this is referenced already in the contract language, but we wanted to have a definition of what that was. Reasonable suspicion. The current language defines reasonable suspicion just as in accordance with federal and state statutes, but we wanted to be clear on what that meant for employees because what federal statutes, what does that really mean? So again, this is our initial proposal, and we're always open to working on this. So reasonable suspicion means required drug testing must be based on a belief that employee is using or has used drugs or alcohol in violation of the employer's policy, drawn from specific, objective, and articulable facts and reasonable inferences drawn from those facts in light of experience. Such facts and inferences may be based upon, and then we're going to list some of what those things could be. Observable phenomena while at work, such as a direct observation of drug use or the physical symptoms of or manifestations of being under the influence of a drug. Abnormal conduct or erratic behavior while at work or significant deterioration of work performance reasonably related to drug or alcohol use. A report of drug use provided by a reliable and credible source. Evidence that an individual has tampered with a drug test during his or her employment with the current employer. Information that employee has caused, contributed, or been involved in an accident while at work. This is, we know that if there's a workers' comp, there's a mandatory test, so we want that to be clear. Or evidence that employee has used, possessed, sold, solicited, or transferred drugs while working or while on the employer's premises or while operating employer's vehicle, machinery, or equipment.
What sources did you use for these?
So this was
definitions?
kind of looking at a culmination of different contracts around the state.
Okay.
I'm happy to provide links
Yeah, I
to
was
those
just curious.
data, but you know, we're always kind of looking. Our state affiliate has kind of a repository or a database of contracts from all over the state, so it's easy for us to kind of like, hey, we want to look at recommended language here. So that's where this pulled from. And some of it you'll see is also maybe familiar from HSEF contract. Some of it is language that we have drafted to kind of deal with what we do here unique in Hillsborough. So testing. So no changes there to 3.2.1 and 3.2.2, you'll see this is where we originally had the term reasonable suspicion, but with our proposal of the definition, then our updates here would be the term reasonable suspicion shall be used as defined above, which we just went over. And then all administrators shall have a minimum of 1 hour training annually. That's our addition. I think we weren't sure on how often that happens, but our proposal is annually in this definition before having the authority to make a recommendation for testing, and all required testing by the district shall be approved and arranged by the Office of Professional Standards. Next, we get into where, you know, how this all works. So The executive officer of professional standards may require an employee to submit to drug and alcohol testing under any of the following circumstances. Whenever at least 2 administrators have a reasonable suspicion of the use or impairment by illegal substances and or alcohol, and the use or impairment where either adversely affects his or her job performance or represents a threat to the safety of the employee, his or her coworkers, or the public. So you can see in the blue is all of our proposed language, red is striking of actual the current language, and then black is what we're leaving. Next would be wherever an employee is involved in a serious accident or repetitive accidents involving personal injury or property damage, which could result in liability of or loss to the school board, including workers' compensation liability. Or at any time within a maximum of 12 calendar months after an employee has been counseled or otherwise disciplined because of a problem with alcohol or illegal drugs, has tested positive for the presence of alcohol or illegal drugs, or has, excuse me, has completed initial rehabilitation for a problem with alcohol or illegal drugs, whichever is later. Next, we get into 3.2.4. The school board will follow the Federal Department of Health and Human Services mandatory guidelines for federal workplace drug testing programs, technical and scientific guidelines covering employee consent. So we just want to be a little clear there. No substantive change there. Oh, sorry. Consent, specimen processing, and reporting of results. That's all covered in that in those guidelines. The administrator shall promptly detail in writing the circumstances which form the basis of the determination that reasonable suspicion existed to warrant the testing, and shall provide it to the employee. Next, we get into testing, and these pieces came from the HSEF contract to kind of get a little specific on the testing. Right now, the current language says testing for the 5 standard drug categories will be conducted by the approved and contracted vendor for these health services, and will require a screening test and a confirming test on each positive specimen. So there's 2 tests there. A and B came from HSEF, where A is the initial screening test shall be the enzyme multiplied immunoassay technique, EMIT, which is easier to say. And B, the confirming test shall be by the gas chromatography mass spectrometry, GCMS method. Very, very technical.
Say it again.
Nope, the GC/MS. And then no later than 5 working days after receipt of a positive confirmed test, the employer shall provide such test results to the employee. Again, an HSEF contract. 3.2 point, this would be a new 8. All information, interviews, reports, statements, memoranda, we are adding audio recordings, video recordings, and records of all referral screenings and confirming tests shall be held in strict confidence by the independent testing laboratory and by all personnel in the school district authorized to have knowledge thereof. No changes there to the next section. And then we get into the new 3.2.10. Employees shall be provided with a list of over-the-counter and prescription medications which may produce positive results on the specified tests. No employee shall be considered to have a positive test or relief from duty for taking medication as prescribed by their physician. HSEF contract language there. Now we're getting into some new language based on some what we've been told about audio video recording in investigators' cars when employees are being taken for testing. So our proposed language here is that audio video recordings in a district investigator's vehicle shall be used solely for the purpose of documenting the investigatory process for the safety of the employee and the district investigator in relation to a reasonable suspicion, there should be an of there, suspicion of drug alcohol testing under this section 3.2. I need a little wordsmithing there. And not for routine surveillance, employee evaluation, employee interview, or disciplinary fishing expedition. A, the employee shall have the right to decline transportation in a district vehicle equipped with active audio and or video recording equipment without it being considered insubordination or refusal to comply with a drug or alcohol testing under this section. An employee shall be given the opportunity to make reasonable alternative arrangements for transportation. The testing process shall not be delayed unreasonably, and the employee shall not be penalized for exercising this right. B, no recording shall begin without first notifying the employee in writing that recording is taking place and the purpose for doing so, and shall be advised of the right to union representation during any investigative process pursuant to Weingarten rights. C, recordings shall not be used in disciplinary proceedings unless the employee and union were given notice of the recording at the time it occurred. D, when a recording is removed or downloaded from an investigator's vehicle to be reviewed for the purpose of or as part of an investigation of employee's conduct, the employee will be given the opportunity to review the recording, and at all such meetings, if requested by the employee, their union representative may be present. And E, the district agrees that any future implementation or expansion of audio-video recording technology for any investigatory or employee-related purposes related to or unrelated to this section require advance notice to the union and shall be subject to impact bargaining prior to implementation. So we know this came out of a discussion that we're very fortunate and thankful to have the ability for our advocacy staff to meet with Dr. Patton's team. We've been doing it like once a quarter, once a semester, and this is a chance for us to talk about issues. And this came out of a discussion about female employees that may be in a situation where they need to go into testing and may feel uncomfortable with only a male investigator. The understanding right now is all the investigators are male. And so I think district and Dr. Patton was understanding of that, but it is a drain on resources, like who's gonna go, who's gonna be the female that goes with that employee. So what we were told in that meeting is that these cameras and recordings would be installed for safety. So he said, she said. Of course, I think it's understandable that we have concerns about what happens with those recordings. You know, are they subject to discipline? We're not challenging the managerial right to install that camera, but we just want to make sure that we're clear in bargaining those impacts on employees and how it's handled, and everybody's clear on how that could be handled. And again, some of this language is a culmination of what we see in HSEF. Hopefully the language about when a recording is removed is familiar with what happens with recordings that are pulled off buses. So yeah, so what we were informed is that those videos could be subject to discipline. They also could be subject to public record. So again, that's why it's very important for us to be clear. So I know that was a lot to walk through. If you have any questions now, we can go over them, or if you want to wait and come back, open to what, if you want me to keep going, I will, but whatever you prefer.
Ms. King, do you have any questions in relation to that? Just clarifying before we go discuss?
No.
Okay.
Yes, and I know when you sit down and dig into it, if questions come up, we're always open to talk.
All right.
All right. And then there's just a renumbering there on 3.2.7 to 3.2.12. All right, on page 16, we've highlighted reclassification because we want to open a discussion about a few positions and job descriptions where what we're hearing, what we're looking at is that there have been maybe some added tasks or responsibilities that might not actually be in the job description at this point. Not that, you know, we know these things change and there's, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of job descriptions, and some of them are the same job code, but you have multiple descriptions. So this is coming from employees. So we highlighted this section because we know there are reclassification procedures and wanted to open it up to kind of clarify how that works. If you could, I mean, without us having to really read every line by line. And then if we have those positions, what would be the best way either in this setting to address a few of those job descriptions?
Okay. We do have a pretty robust job description process. So if, and a lot of times, let's say a manager or supervisor wants to make an adjustment to a job description, they have to request from our manager of performance evaluation, they request the link to be open, basically. Once they've done that, they can submit their edits, and same thing, like I could work, you know, we could work with you if you had some edits that you wanted to submit, if we were in agreement to do that. So through that process, if there's financial implications to it, then it is then sent over to the finance division for their okay, basically, to say that that is something that we can consider. And then once that has been submitted by the supervisor, if it is a job description that falls under a bargaining unit, we share that change with, you know, the appropriate union. So that is the process. So it's definitely something we can always look at job descriptions if they don't reflect the current job, because as we've seen through this unit clarification process, some of these job descriptions are 20, 30 years old, and they may not be, you know, reflective of the exact work that employees are doing.
Yeah.
Of course, all job descriptions say and any other task as assigned, right? We love that line, but whatever that means. So, you know, that is something we can always look at. We
Sure.
want the job description to reflect the responsibilities, but we know it can't be all inclusive.
Right. Yeah, appreciate that. So I don't know if Regina has anything. We pulled a few of them. They're kind of in the notes. I'm still kind of working on the assistant teacher associate's degree Head Start. Again, I didn't want to like bring all these job descriptions right now, but just wanted to have that discussion. And if you want to give any more information about why and kind of where we're headed with this.
Sure. For assistant teacher and parent liaison, I know that some of their supervisors are working on some things adding to the job descriptions for both of those. It's kind of like they are social worker assistants, if you want to call it. So they want to kind of get that updated. With the para 3, I know that there is a new behavior technician, and there is one person that we're aware of in the hospital homebound, only one ESP. And so just updating their description because it's just para 3 basic for all para 3s, including those two. And then data processor, just clarifying the different responsibilities in that as well. Since that's changed.
There's different schools of thought with job descriptions.
Right.
I mean, even in HR practice, and I don't advocate for one or the other. There's some that think they should be very generic in a way, and just say the general responsibilities. And then there's some that, you know, some people have a school of thought that it should be very specific so that people know exactly what the expectation is. So at the same time, a job description is not the only communication that you have with a supervisor about what your expectations are on any given day. So especially if it's reflecting something that is not accurate and is not a responsibility, then that's definitely something we should be addressing. Okay.
So what we
Excuse me, you can hear anything down from that.
what can you hear Danielle and I?
Here you go.
Couldn't hear it, Regina. Okay. That's what we'll put this mic on Regina.
Okay.
Yeah. When
It
we
might be
need
the-
it.
I mean, unless they want to sit right.
That's okay.
We've been hearing everything. Just can hear,
Regina. Yeah. Okay.
She's soft spoken.
Next time we'll put it on the.
I'll
Next time.
talk louder. I'll talk louder. Can you hear me?
Anyway, so what I think we'll do, you know, we meet regularly with you.
Yes.
And my thought is that we'll pull these job descriptions and we'll kind of bullet point the things and give them to you if it's something that we think we needs to come back here.
And what's
But yeah.
interesting, like you mentioned, we do meet weekly in our HR and union labor relations meetings. And I have had some communications with some of your staff that have brought up other ones than just the ones that are here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can definitely look at that. I think that would be a process.
Yeah.
And maybe something that's a long-term project to get done.
Yeah, and I know we've done some different things where we've like pulled together a committee and maybe it's one of those where like, okay, we know we got this pile of descriptions, hopefully not a very big one.
Right.
But we've got a few interested parties or folks that could speak to it. We can set up those meetings. So I appreciate that. All right, so we'll come back to that. All right, moving on to page 17. This is then Article 5 and 5.1.2. Proposing some new language when there's a certification involved for you know, these procedures for classification, qualifying, testing, and certifying of active employees. So once an ESP is tested and or certified for classification, we're proposing including or has the documented equivalent classification from another public school district, they shall continue indefinitely to be certified for that classification. Testing expense may be borne by the employee. So we're right here, we're trying to include that if that ESP has documentation of that classification from another district, that's counted.
Give me an example of,
Mike.
So an example would be they've already taken the para-pro test in another school district. So just not requiring them to do it again as long as it hasn't expired already.
thank you.
Yeah, I know, it's like, all right. In 5.1.6, some new language here with updating and monitoring competencies. So the district shall update current employee profile competencies automatically to the district application services. Current employees are responsible for monitoring their employee profile competencies through the district applications service offices to maintain accuracy. So, add to that piece, why?
So we wanted to get this part added, and I know that it would involve whether or not the systems can update that based on employees that's already in the school district, where it kind of updates automatically. And if an employee has to go in to add some things, right now, currently, I know that employees have to go in and update it before they apply, and so just trying to see if we can be streamlined into the system.
So definitely open to working on that and countering that there.
And for those who aren't aware, we do have a updated application system that has started this year. So we're still learning some of those system capabilities and also adjusting things that are not working, in order to make it, better moving forward. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, that's our goal too. All right, on page 18, 5.1.10, ESP employees shall request ahead of time and shall be granted school business time during their normal workday for activities related to testing, qualifying, and interviewing for district positions, so long as requests are not excessive. The ESP shall make every effort to minimize the impact on their scheduled workday. So, just want to be clear here that time shall be granted as school business. I had this highlighted there, Article 6, since it's salary, we'll come back to that. That's just a hold since it's money related.
Got it.
All right. Now on to Article 7 with appointments and substitutes. So we want to get some clarification on this process of temporary assignments, substitutes. And this comes from, we know that a lot of our folks are having to take on extra duties because we've got vacancies or absences. And that's day to day, but we hear it a lot, right? I'm being asked to cover more or, be the team player. So we just want to clarify temporary appointments and substitutes. Is there a way to kind of clearly define when someone is in a temporary assignment versus, hey, I'm just filling in versus subbing for someone? That's all been kind of, and I know it's a challenge right now, but I think employees are seeking some kind of clarification there. So we just want to open that discussion. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add or ask that relates to this that I didn't cover before.
Right. And to clarify for, for what the difference is just globally, temporary appointments are usually when an employee, a permanent employee is out on leave and they're going to be out on an extended leave. Therefore, a school could hire someone into that role temporarily to fill that role. Substitutes, we do have Kelly Services who does provide substitutes for some of our paraprofessional positions because of the need there, where they will, if someone is out for a short-term leave, usually 30 days or less, or if they are just absent, normally, that they can request a substitute. So yes, I think that needs to, this language, and Britt and I have always talked about, the language needs to reflect practice, right? And those processes have changed over the years.
Right.
We didn't always get Kelly substitute paraprofessionals previously. So.
Yeah, I think that's good because we had some conversations about still talking about that, especially for clerical too, like clerical subs when maybe the temp application applies there because you need someone to fill a key role for the year. But then if someone's out, intermittently, how does that impact a clerical team? And then, we've got some later language about subs. So if there's anything else that I missed. Okay. So I appreciate that conversation. We don't have any proposals yet, but I think we'll think about it and really dig into this language. And if you have any ideas too, we'll kind of look at this. Yeah, and I think we highlighted there that 7.3.2, the same thing under subs, that we are dealing with issues where our ESE paras are not getting subs, right? So we know it's a challenge that to fill those positions too for Kelly. So, all right, then in 7.5, concurrent appointments. Hopefully this will be self-explanatory, but right now the language says an employee may hold more than one permanent ESP position at the same time if the total regular working hours of the position do not exceed 40 hours per week, a permanent employee, a permanent ESP may be hired in a temporary ESP position as long as the total regular working hours of the permanent position and the temporary position do not exceed 40 hours per week. And our new language proposal here is if the ESP is required to work beyond 40 hours per week, the employee will be paid overtime pay. All right, page 23, 7.7.1. This is a tied to money piece, but we thought we would put it on the table, start the tracking list. Currently, the language says paraprofessionals that serve as classroom aides may serve as substitutes for their assigned teacher. The paraprofessional will be compensated with supplemental pay of $10 more per hour for the hours they perform as a substitute if their assigned teacher is absent without a substitute. Paraprofessionals should only serve as a substitute for other teachers they are not normally assigned to in an emergency and will be compensated with supplemental pay of $10 more per hour for the hours they serve as a substitute. Our new proposed language here is paraprofessionals in classrooms that absorb additional students shall be compensated with supplemental pay of $10 more per hour for the hours they perform duties with absorbed students. And this is a starting point, right? We've seen language like this before with our instructional unit, right? We're always trying to, how can we help support when there's no sub or there's a situation where employees have to take on extra students. This happens a lot at elementary. I was an elementary teacher and a teacher's out and that class gets divided up and now you've got 5 more students. So, this is, again, stems from what we proposed in the past for instructional. But again, a starting point here to address extra workload, which seems to be happening more and more often just with the struggles we face in Florida right now with the workforce. All right, experience credit, Article 8. In 8.1, we're proposing including our nurses here. I know the nurses are actually included in the paraprofessional unit, but because nurses have kind of a very specific field of expertise, kind of like our clerical, the paraprofessionals are kind of all-inclusive of a lot of different things. We felt that the nurses fell in this spot a little clearer with experience credit. So right now the language says clerical employees, we're proposing including and nurses, shall be given salary credit for all related experience, including experience credit from other public school districts as a clerical employee or nurse earned after July 1, 2023. So initially, we've got the clerical, they get their experience credit already for related experience. We want to also include the other school districts, but we also want to be inclusive of our nurses. We know some of our nurses get partial experience, some don't get any. I know Ms. Butts can speak to that if you have any questions or need any clarification on that, but that's our proposal there. And then for the paraprofessionals, right now the language says paraprofessionals shall be given salary credit for all. And what we're proposing here is including experience from other public school districts and all Hillsborough County Public School. And we want to include teaching and paraprofessional experience as defined in this assignment. So we know that we've had a lot of discussions over doing our best to give as much experience credit to our employees, especially those that are coming in. So we want to be inclusive of other school district experience. We already give them HCPS experience, but we know we have some folks who have been teachers and then come into the paraprofessional role. And that's where we're at. So we want to try to get folks as much credit as we can within reason. We know we're not trying to fit a square peg in the round hole, but even teaching experience is definitely related to classroom experience. So that's our proposal there. And yeah. All right, then we get into work year, Article 9. 9.1.1, the number of work days per year for individual classifications of ESP shall not be published in the school board approved payroll schedule and work calendars until agreed to by HCTA. We already do this. You guys, Danielle's great at sending us over, hey, here's the calendars. We look at them. They are mandatory subject to bargaining. So we're trying to include here that that's the process to cover that, which you already do. Send those calendars to us to look over. Is there anything missing? So we just wanted to codify that in the language. Then we get into holidays, both for our 10 and 12 month. This comes from a desire to be very specific about what these holidays are, because I think it can get confusing. Regina and I were just looking at 5 or 6 different calendars to figure out what they are. So our proposal here is to have them in the contract. we're open to how this looks, but these are the ones that we identified in this current employee contract. So in 9.1.2, less than 12-month ESP shall be paid for the following 6 holidays. Currently, it just says 6 holidays, so we wanted to say the following, and we listed Labor Day is 1 day, Veterans Day is 1 day, fall break is 1 day, winter break 2 days, and Martin Luther King Jr. Day is 1 day. So those are the 6 holidays that we identified as paid holidays for 10-month employees.
And just to clarify the
Yep.
current process, it is currently 6 paid holidays for less than 12-month employees. We just haven't designated which 6 days. And they have floated around over the years. So, but they've always been the 6 paid holidays. A lot of times with the work calendars, what I do is I collaborate with finance, especially with the payroll team, to look at that and to look at, which days would be the least impactful to employees as far as maybe shortened checks and things like that. So that's why they have floated around sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I think these are pretty standard, especially the fall and winter break, Martin Luther King,
Yeah.
Labor Day, Veterans Day. So it's just come to us that I know with all the challenges with school calendars and we have hurricanes, on wood, but yeah, there's definitely been a desire from employees with, especially I think even born out of the issues with having to adjust the calendar for hurricane, that like those days are clear. We know what they are. Everybody around, employees, administrators, anyone who reads this book knows that those are the days that are there. So that's our proposal. And then for the 12-month ESP shall be paid the following. Our proposal here is to add 2 days, and I'll talk a little bit about it, but our 15 holidays would be Labor Day 1, fall break 3, winter break is 10, and 14, Martin Luther King Jr. Day would be 1. Yeah, no, that's 15, sorry, I was counting in my head. So currently, we know that the 13 paid holidays are the fall and the winter break, which comes at 13, 10 for the winter break, and fall break is 3. The current way that Labor Day and Martin Luther King Day are done is the employee has to work 4 days, 10 hours to make up for those days. So our proposal is just to make those paid holidays for employees. We know there's costs associated and that'll have to be reviewed, but this has come from those employees saying, hey, it's a paid holiday. We would like that day off too. So
you asked a clarifying question there. So our 12-month employees work 253 days. Are you proposing that they are now 255 days, or are you just proposing that out of 253 that there's 15 paid?
Right.
Okay, I
yes.
just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
we're not proposing increasing the work year.
Okay.
But yeah,
Thank you.
yes, good question.
Well, there's a different financial impact.
I
both of them.
understand, yes,
Okay.
yes. All right, there's a lot of red and strike and blue in the next section on regular duty hours, but this should be familiar for those of you that have been here. These are our proposals for all categories of employees to be 8-hour workdays with the same application of breaks and lunches. So I'll walk through these, but you're probably familiar with this from last time. So in 9.2.1, during regular school year, the workdays for full-time clerical shall be 8 hours, including 2 15-minute paid breaks. School-based clerical shall be provided a paid, for striking none, 30-minute duty-free lunch during the 8-hour workday. Non-school-based clerical shall be provided paid 30-minute lunch during the 8-hour workday. So we want to make that streamlined and the same for all. No change in 9.2.2. 9.2.3, the workday for permanent ESE paraprofessionals, paraprofessional 1, 2, 3, 4, assistant teachers and aides shall be 8 hours, including a 30-minute duty-free paid lunch. ESE paraprofessionals, assistant teachers, and aides are entitled to 2 15-minute paid schedule breaks. So again, trying to make them all in line and the same. 9.2.4, the workday for hearing technicians shall be 8 hours, including their paid lunch period. Hearing technicians receive 2 15-minute breaks. 9.2.5, the workday for physical therapy assistants, health assistants, nurses, and occupational therapy assistants shall be 8 hours, including their paid period and 2 15-minute paid schedule breaks. 9.2.6, the workday for non-ESE paraprofessionals and vocational placement advisors shall be 8 hours, including their paid lunch period. Non-ESE paraprofessionals and vocational placement advisors shall receive 2 15-minute breaks. And 9.2.7, paraprofessionals shall be notified of their tentative schedule or grade level assignment for the ensuing year as soon as the master schedule is prepared. In addition, they will be notified of any changes in their tentative program schedule or grade level assignment the ensuing year, including the school to which they will be assigned. We would like to strike as soon as possible and clarify that to be no later than the first day of pre-planning. So, again, all of these proposals for all these different job classifications, I mean, if you follow the tracking, you can see that it's different for different categories of employees. We've got some 8-hour employees, some 7.5, some get paid lunches, some don't, some get 15-minute breaks, some don't. So this has been something that is a hot topic that comes up a lot through our surveying, that our employees want the 8-hour. We know that there's a financial impact there because that's an additional half-hour of paid time for all those paraprofessional employees. I think last year we estimated that in the $9 million range. But this is where we're at. We know this is a compensation or will be a money-related item, but if you have any questions, we can talk more about it. But I hope it's clear that you understand why, all the classification of employees want to have that same. We had a lot of discussion last year about just giving restroom breaks to our assistants and to our paraprofessionals. And that was a tough discussion because we know that there's a need to cover and make sure that students are accounted for, but also this idea that can I have a scheduled restroom break? And so we landed last year on a place where it would, those efforts would be made and it would be accommodated for, but we know that employees they want to be treated the same and have that opportunity for the break as well. So that's where that's all coming from.
Right. And of course, the challenge is that some positions are directly with students, right?
Yes.
And some positions are not. So that's where some of those challenges come that we need to work through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's worth a discussion too, to talk about, folks that are in the classroom and working with teachers, where are their breaks at, right? Is that during a planning time? Are they an assigned duty somewhere? I mean, it's worth looking at all of that, but yeah, that's where we're at with this. All right, page 25, I have here highlighted 9.2.11. This language, I'm going to read this language. So to try to kind of get the discussion going, that the length of the day for ESP employees is the same on non-student days as it is on regular student days. However, school-based ESP employees shall be allowed to use comp time, personal time, vacation time, and or non-personal time on these days in order to match the workday of teachers. So we just want to kind of be clear here that on these days that are work days, and we know some of our teachers may use their comp time, that our understanding of the language is here to allow that same opportunity for an ESP. But does that prohibit them from saying, hey, I don't want to take the comp time, I want to come work and maybe work on some professional development? We just want some clarification just to be that our understanding of this language is as such. Maybe I'm
No, I
summarizing
mean,
it wrong too.
no, I think you're summarizing it right. I mean, I'm sure at some point there must have been some questions about whether leaders were letting their employees use their comp time. I don't really see a need for this section at all, because obviously if you're not assigned to students, then you are eligible to use your comp time. So, but at some point it must have been a clarification. I'm going to guess that your side wanted to put in order to clarify that for leaders. But that's my interpretation of it.
That's where I landed with it too.
Yeah, and I think it's fine to have the language. That's why we didn't really propose any changes. We just wanted to have the discussion that, and I think Regina can speak to it too, that I think what's happening now is we may have some employees that think that they have to take the day. So just want to be clear that it's not, because we do have, you'll see later in a lot of what we have proposed is that there's a real strong desire for our ESPs to really develop and grow their professional development, what they're able to do. And these would be good days to potentially do that, to work on something like if they're working on a Parent to Pro or some
If it is a
micro-credentials.
work day,
Right.
no one is required to use their time on
Thank
that
you.
day.
Very good. That helps. All right. And then 9.2.12. School shall not schedule conference night or open house on the second Thursday of any month, except in the case of emergency, The exception must be approved by the chief of schools with notification and explanation provides HCTA. I don't think we have this this is not something that happens very often, but there's language there, they say there is an exception, it has to be approved by the chief of schools, but that way HCTA is applied, that's all. All right, then we get into overtime duties. 9.3.3, this talks about, this section is about emergencies, you know, just, oh my gosh, we need someone there to help monitor students. So I'll read the first language and I'll go through our new edition, then we'll talk about it. Except in emergencies, when danger to the health or well-being of employees, students, or other persons could occur, or when danger to school board property is imminent, all overtime duty must be approved by the employee's principal or supervisor prior to being performed. Our new language here is to kind of address, like, you know, if an emergency happens, is there even time to approve that? So maybe we know something's gonna happen at the end of the day, we're short-staffed, buses are gonna be late, we know we need people. So our new language here is, in the event of such an emergency, employees who respond in good faith shall be compensated for all overtime work. Within 1 workday of the event, the employee shall submit a short written description of the situation, including the location, time, and nature of the emergency. And where feasible, the employee may also list witnesses, example, another staff member, security, first responder, administrator, who observed or aware of the situation. And then emergency-related overtime shall not be denied solely because the approving administrator or timekeeper was not personally present. And then disputes regarding emergency overtime eligibility may be referred to human resources for resolution. So this is just to be clear that if there's a situation where it's like, oh my gosh, we got to be here, that then the employee has the opportunity to document that, say, hey, I stuck around an hour for the real emergency situation, and then again, if there's any dispute, we can resolve that.
Is this mostly driven by ESC Paris? Was there a,
Well, it'll cover any ESPs, and so the main thing is that if they are staying after and the timekeeper or the principal is not present, or they don't have each other's cell number, some ESPs feel like they're staying, and then when they come in the next day to say they stayed because it wasn't pre-approved, then now their timekeeper or administrator is not approved, and they've already worked with nurses.
okay.
So for all ESPs.
Okay, and I also think it's important that we make sure we're clear on the communication structure that if there is an emergency, the ESP should be contacting the administrator. They shouldn't feel like they're on an island by themselves having to deal with that situation.
Sure.
So, okay.
Yeah, and that can be incorporated in here too, that maybe there's like a, first they do this, if not, then this, and we're open to that. But we wanted to just kind of open this that, you know, we know there is so much, you know, riding on safety of students, and if that happens and they can't get a hold of someone, let's say they did try, then maybe that's part of the, hey, I tried to call you, or but we're open to working on that. We just wanted to make sure our intent there was clear. Because we agree, we don't want it to just be, we're like, oh, I'm just choosing to get an extra hour of overtime today.
Right.
So we know that we need to look at that.
Okay.
All right, vacation and holidays. Page 26. So our proposal here for vacation leave is that right now this section, the language there says this section does not apply to less than 12-month employees. So our proposal here is to strike this, that less than 12-month employees would be eligible for vacation. And then in 10.1.4, striking 12-month, so we're inclusive of all ESP employees, may allow their vacation to accrue. So we know that there's a monetary expense to this if all less than 12 months employees were earning vacation. But this is a proposal that we know would be time and compensation, but we're putting it out there right now. All right, holidays, 10.2.1. The language here is to kind of go with what we showed earlier about listing the holidays, but the current language says holidays for ESP employees shall be observed as established by the school board approved calendars for instructional support employees. The number of paid holidays for ESP employees shall be proper subjects of collective bargaining. What we're adding here is and listed in section 9.1.2 and 9.1.3 of this agreement. So we're trying to hopefully see that that's the tie there to the page we just went over with listing those paid holidays for 10 and 12-month employees, or less than 12-month employees. All right, evaluation philosophy. not a lot of substantive changes here, other than we just want to be clear that the philosophy about evaluations is just a little clarified. So the language right now says in 11.1.1, it is the philosophy of this agreement that evaluation is a developmental process. And our proposed addition here is done together with the employee. The rest of the language goes on to say all evaluations shall be directed to identifying strengths as well as weaknesses. Evaluation shall be the responsibility of the administration, except as specified for teachers in 11.1.2 below. Nothing in this provision shall deny the administrator from receiving input from appropriate non-managerial personnel not included in the same bargaining unit as the employee. So we know, especially for our paraprofessionals, they have a teacher supervisor, and later in the language it talks about how that input can be used. But just like we do in our teacher evaluation, the person in the same bargaining unit, a teacher and a teacher can't be involved in that evaluation. So we just want to be clear that with our ESPs, it's the same practice. A clerical unit employee is not part of the evaluation or giving input for another clerical employee. Same with our paraprofessionals. And then again, no other changes to the rest of that. We just wanted to kind of highlight that. And then in 11.3 for forms and procedures, you'll see here in 11.3.1 where it talks about ESP shall be evaluated according to the current approved evaluation instrument. We want to include that instrument in Appendix D, so that evaluation form is in the contract. We don't have any proposed changes to that document.
Okay.
You'll see it later. I just kind of have a screenshot of it. I'm sure we can get a cleaner version, but you'll see what we're doing there. And then we say that this shall be the exclusive form used for all performance evaluations. And then our goal here in the next sentence is, right now the language says prior to the written assessment, the ESP shall be informed of the criteria and procedure to be used. And our proposal here is that instead of prior to the written assessment, that we're very specific that at the start of pre-planning, but no later than September 15th, the ESP shall be informed of the criteria and procedure to be used. So we just want to.
What's your proposal? I mean, I'd love to think we have all employees hired by pre-planning, but that's not reality. So we ongoingly hire throughout the year. So just, do you have a suggestion? for
Yeah,
that?
I think we're open to that too. It's 2 weeks, 4 weeks, like within a new hire at any time, and we can add that in there. But I think you see our intent is just to make sure, like, here it is, it's all up front, and then, throughout the year, before we even get to the written part, that everybody's up front. Okay. So I'll make it right there. Okay, now in 11.3.7, you'll see a bunch of red. We're not proposing striking this from the contract, we're just proposing moving it to, you'll see later. We felt that the progressive discipline language didn't feel appropriate in the evaluation section, just because while maybe and sometimes there could be a behavior issue that is subject to discipline, you see our goal is to make sure that the evaluation is about something done with the employee to help their performance. So we're not striking or changing this. You'll just see later where we're moving it. So that's why it's red here, but you'll see a bunch of blue language later on.
Is there any proposed changes in that language?
No.
Can we find it later on?
No, I basically just copied this, struck it, and then pasted it, and
Got it.
all the eagle eyes can look at it and be sure, but there's no proposed change in progressive discipline. We just want to put it in the discipline section of the contract.
Okay.
All right, Article 12. This talks about probationary period, promotional observation period, and career observation. We did some looking at HSEF contract, and we really like a lot of the work they did there to kind of really talk about what career observation is, and we liked their title of performance support plan. So our proposal here is to change it from career observation and align what HSEF does. So our goal here, you'll see we basically taken their language. So probationary period, no changes. And then when we get into 12.3 on page 29, this is where career observation is. But again, our proposal is to change it to performance support plan, PSP. This came from HSEF's language, so I'll read through it. The performance support plan, the PSP, is a process to facilitate constructive discussion between an employee and his or her principal supervisor, and to clarify the work performance concerns to be improved. The principal supervisor shall determine if the concern is a performance concern, parentheses, employee has not demonstrated significant and sustained mastery of skills and tasks, that's what that's about, or a behavior concern, behaviors that may disrupt the workplace. When a principal or supervisor identifies the concern as a behavior concern, they shall follow, I probably put something in there, but follow the HCTA progressive discipline process in section 13.1. That's where we're moving progressive discipline. So if after an ESP has been informed in writing of administrative performance concerns by the employee receiving at least one verbal warning and one written warning, a principal supervisor determines that an ESP is continuing to have some serious performance problems, the rater may initiate performance support plan, the performance support process after obtaining approval from the chief officer for the Division of Human Resources or designee. So you can see what we're trying to do there is make this very, very specific about performance concerns, and then aligning it with this new title. We then go on with the new sentence here that the purpose of the performance support plan is to assist the employee in improving his or her performance with input from the affected employee. The format and the expectation of the PSP should enable the principal or supervisor and employee to communicate with clarity and specific expectations. Again, that's from HSES. So with the approval of the administrator, striking the old career observation language and picking up the PSP language here, I'm going to read through it just because it's new for this contract. I know it's a lot, but what our new proposed language here is that the principal or supervisor will monitor and provide ongoing feedback to the employee regarding his or her performance on the PSP. Sufficient time shall be allowed between PSP meetings for improvements to occur. The principal or supervisor will cite goals and their measures of success. There shall be a minimum of 2 scheduled meetings. The principal or supervisor shall review and implement the following in the performance support plan. First, identify the performance to be improved, be specific and cite examples. Oh, this is a new bullet point here. I forgot my space. The next is identify the level of work performance expectations and that it must be performed on a consistent basis. Identify and specify the support and resources the principal or supervisor will provide to assist the employee. Communicate the plan for providing feedback to the employee. Specify meeting times with whom and how often. Specify the measurements considered in the evaluating process. Allow the employee to request a union representative to be present at all PSP meetings. Meeting date and time may be postponed by mutual consent of HCTA and the principal or supervisor. And allow the employee to elect to have a colleague of his or her choosing serve as support for the PSP. Then, as a result of this process, one or more of the following may occur. A, release employee from the performance support plan. B, remain on the performance support plan while continuing to work toward the areas of improvement, received and approved administrative transfer. Or C, take additional disciplinary action if warranted based on the contractual progressive discipline process up to and including termination. Again, that's all HSCF language, which we appreciated and liked how it was very thorough and specific. So then in 12.3.3, striking career observation and just adding that's the performance support plan, no other changes there. And then the same in 12.3.4, striking career observation and referencing the PSP, and then striking again all the career observation. So hopefully that's clear, but it, we like that. Felt like it was a little more, working with the employee than just kind of like, let's check these boxes. And then now you see in 13, here we see the copy and paste of the due process and progressive discipline language. I'm not going to read through that because the intent there is not to change any of that. It's just putting it there, but check it out. Make sure I didn't have any wonky copy paste. And then for 13, where we talk about reprimand, demotion, suspension, and termination, we just wanted to do some cleanup here on just cause. So reprimand, demotion, suspension, or termination shall be only for just cause. And in support of just cause, the following offenses may warrant disciplinary action, including reprimand, demotion, suspension, or termination. And then no changes to what those things are. Page 33 and 34 are in here, and they did not print in color, but all they are, if you look at the numbers, it's just updating to the numbering. So sorry about that. Those are just placeholders there for you to see. And sorry about not printing in color, but you would see the little red and blue. All right, then we get into Article 15.1.4, just a little cleanup here. So this 15.1.4 is where the ESP employees are eligible to transfer at any time during the work year, except when the Division of Human Resources has implemented a freeze on transfers on specific classifications for unit loss placement. No changes there. Qualified replacement should be secured before the transfer is made. However, no transfer will be delayed more than 2 weeks. No changes there. The administration shall allow for up to 1 week training period for the new employee by the old employee, striking whenever possible. So we wanted to make this very like, it shall happen and it will happen, not may and only impossible for that training period with the new and the old. And then in
And that's
15,
assuming that the old employee didn't drop their keys and walk out the door?
right,
Okay, all right, just checking.
we're open to a counter. We're open to a counter, but you see what we're going for there. But I appreciate the question or point. 15.1.5, all vacancies will be advertised online for a reasonable amount of time, which is 5 work days, before any transfers except administrative. New hires or other actions to fill the position are processed. No changes there. Existing employees in a department or at the work site shall be considered for job openings prior to advertisement. So we wanted for this prior to other advertisement, the language right now just has that for existing employees in a department with different hours of operation, but we wanted to expand this to include employees at that work site regardless of hours prior to advertisement.
So that, just to clarify, so that clerical possibly would be given the opportunity to apply for that job or vice versa before opening it to outside.
Yeah,
Okay.
and again, we're trying to, like, department and those work site employees, I think we've kind of over time worked and massage this in certain situations. So we just want to open that up, that those folks kind of get that priority, because maybe we can have that happen at that site or in that department regardless, and maybe that person wants to go and then everybody knows up front before going into the process. So that's our intent there.
Got it.
We're okay with working on that. All right, page 40, funeral leave. We don't think there would be any great impact on this because we're not asking for more days. We're just asking for kind of a adjustment of how these days are applied. So right now the language says in the event of the death of a member of the ESP's immediate family, then there's the list of all those folks. And an ESP on permanent status shall be granted up to 3 days of paid leave to facilitate attendance at the funeral. Our proposal here is regardless of location, and striking this language that kind of divvies up like a day for a local, 2 days for the 200 miles, or up to 3 days for anything out of state. So we just want the 3 days to be available regardless of if it's local or not.
So it would be an increase, because obviously if someone has a local funeral, then they only get 1 day right now currently, so they would get 3 days.
Right, but they get a total, but they would get up to 3 if they had to go out of state, right?
Only if they had to go out of state, but this would propose that someone not going out of state and even for a local funeral would get 3 days as well.
Right, and then the language below talks about how if an ESP employee has the primary responsibility for arrangements, they would get extra day not to exceed the maximum of 3. So our proposal there is that if there were 3 days for an out of state or in state or within 200, they do get that extra day to help make the arrangements. So.
Well, and we will be able to work with payroll to cost out how many people submitted for 1 or 2 days. If they were automatically given 3, what that financial impact would be.
All right. All right, page 44. Sorry, I didn't print in color, but it's down there at the bottom for info. It's 17.7.1. We're proposing a little addition here. When ESP employees desire to attend a conference, convention, workshop, etc. during their normal workday, they will present a request for approval of the trip to their principal supervisor at least 2 weeks in advance of the trip. If approved, attendance shall be considered temporary assignment to duty elsewhere. I just want to be specific because I don't think if this was outside the workday, they wouldn't get excluded. But if it's temporary duty elsewhere, so we want to be specific that this is during the workday. All right, 45. We've kind of touched on this in the past about micro-credentials. We know there's a cost associated, but we wanted to get our proposal on what we're going for across today. So we're proposing a new 17.7.3 We've talked a lot about the NEA micro-credentials. The NEA micro-credential is a competency-based recognition that allows an ESP to demonstrate mastery in a particular area of inquiry. Micro-credentials can be used for compensation and in-service hours towards instructional positions. Any ESP employee who completes an approved NEA micro-credential shall receive $250 annually per micro-credential. An employee must submit proper certificate of completion to receive the supplement. So these micro-credentials, I think, what are they, 18 hours, 15 hours? So NEA has a whole library of these micro-credentials that have a range of all different kinds of things, and they can be from, I don't know if you want to even speak to one, but it's a whole library, and we can share that with you. But this is something that's kind of moving nationwide. We're seeing other states adopting this, where if our ESPs are accomplishing a micro-credential, then they get this supplement for that year. And we're open to working on that, but we have consistently been really, we really desire this to kind of elevate their professional development. So if you want to speak more to like what these micro-credentials are and could be, I think that would be helpful.
So I've had the opportunity, and even some people in the room has had the opportunity to get a micro-credential. Can include professionalism, communication, ethics, cultural competence, family engagement. There's a few more of opportunities as well. All of them are 15 hours, and how it typically works is amongst the PLC. And so paras get to be alongside with clericals as well as nurses actually receiving this micro-credential. So it's not, I mean, this gives another opportunity for networking with other employees throughout the district.
Does NEA offer these free of cost, or is there a cost associated?
So it is free of cost to union members. There is a small fee if they are not a member.
Okay.
So we can. Oh, okay. I thought it was David. It's okay, I thought it was David. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll send you the link to the library so you can browse those at your leisure. But it's been really great. We've seen a lot of professional growth among our members who have gone to these, and just really, you know, in a lot of ways, like, because Regina was saying, you know, that ability to network with even others across the country, that like your what's the word, like your confidence and your ability to, you know, interact with others has increased. So again, we're excited about this, and we can even show you some examples of other contractual language from other states if you would like to see that. But again, trying to elevate it. Oh, Regina's got something else.
I just wanted to add as well that here in our local, we have the opportunity nationally to facilitate this training to ESPs nationwide last year and this year. Typically it's around spring break. So we have a cadre of professional learning leaders right here already in Hillsborough County. So we just want to definitely expand it since we're already a model nationwide.
That's great. Marie?
You had mentioned about when they earn it, but this is saying annually that you're requesting it would be $250.
Yeah, so and we can look at these. There's lots of different ways and examples of how this, you know, again, because it's a 15 credit hour course, you know, we're again open to counters on, is it one, is it multiple? And then, yeah, we want to make sure that it's certificated and completed for that year. Not that it would be ongoing, right? That's not our proposal, but it would be if Regina or I got 2 micro-credentials, we would submit it and we get that, we could get up to $500 for that, paid for that year. And we can look at how and when that's paid and all that. We just wanted to.
The way this is written makes it sound like you're going to get it ongoing.
Okay.
Correct. That's
Sorry.
why I asked.
No, we're open to looking at that too. Like, again, like, do we want to make it a max or, you know, that sort of thing. I don't, again, that's seen in examples in other states.
Okay.
I think the long term or the annual accumulation would be those in-service hours, right? So let's say I get the micro-credential this year, okay, I get the 250, but now those 15 credit hours, if it's something that I could bank for in-service, if later on in my career, then I could use that towards my certification. So that would be the bank. I think that would be the long-term investment in a way. But then it doesn't prohibit an ESP from then the next year, oh, I'm gonna try something different and add to my, you know, what I've got under my belt for experience. So, but good questions.
I just want to add that we're asking you to kind of take a look at this. We think that micro-credentialing is just a more modern way to look at professional development because it's product-based. It is the application of knowledge. So that way, when an ESP or even a teacher gets that micro-credential, now they've actually applied this skill somewhere, and now they're going to bring it into the workforce. So I guess I use it and liken it to like a Boy Scout badge. Cub Scout as I was, and you can see that Mr. Lois and Mr. Russell got their badge for knowing how to tie a tie, and I did not. So anyway, just letting you know, it's a unique way of going about.
How do you know they're
learning
not
that.
clip-on?
I don't know that, but I think those went away in the early 80s. I'm not sure.
Actually,
No kidding.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
So,
times they are changing. Well, thank you.
yeah, no, thank you for that. We'll send you the library and
Okay.
we've got an example MOU, I think that's in Oregon. And again, we're open to how to make this work, but we do want to kind of get this going somehow if possible. All right. Page 49, 17.16, educational leave. So we just, this is about, I'll read the existing language and then talk about our addition. ESP employees may be granted educational leave to participate in educational programs beneficial to the employee's growth against his or her present or projected assignment in Hillsborough County School System. Educational leave shall be without pay and not exceed 12 consecutive months. Only one educational leave can be obtained after 3 years of employment and thereafter each 3-year period. Proof of training shall be submitted upon return from leave. No changes there. What we are proposing is that the Pair to Pro training shall be accommodated for and scheduled during the employee's workday or year by mutual consent between the employee and the administrator and shall not require educational leave. So this is a specific kind of training, the Pair to Pro, and I don't think it requires a whole year of leave. I'm looking to Regina to help me on this one. Sorry, Regina, I caught you. This is the our proposal for the Pair to Pro training to be accommodated during the workday and year. Not as an
So-
education.
Currently, we have some ESPs that are in the Pair to Pro program, which is a partnership with different colleges, with Hillsborough County Public School. So what we're hearing is that, when it comes to them to get ready to do their, internship, they pretty much almost have to take an educational leave, in order to get this accomplished, which would also, can impede on their personal life. And so they wanted to see if they are able to have some kind of agreement with their administrators to continue and to be able to do the in-service during their work day.
So that's where that's coming from.
So make sure I'm understanding. So if they are doing an internship with St. Leo for the Pair to Pro program, now to do that, you would have to go on educational leave because somebody has to do the work in the classroom. So what is the proposal that, can you clarify that proposal for me?
Yeah, so I'm currently.
Perfect.
And the issue that I'm having with my is that they're not allowing me to have that. Well, let's go back. There's a conflict with my administration where they're saying they're not able to accommodate my time in order to go into the classroom and do my institution. So they're allowing me to either transfer into a position that is allowing me to, or take an educational leave. But I've been in 2 positions where as a para, I'm not able to do that as well, because the administrator just doesn't seem like it's what she would need time to do that.
So, and I knew St. Leo had the program, so that's why I'm really happy you're in that program. So what would that look like? Because obviously the work you do on a daily basis is super important and it contributes to the safety of students. So if you were going into another classroom, would that be full day? And what would be the impact in the classroom that you normally cover?
So currently, they have 4 semesters. Each of the first 3 semesters, you have to accomplish 30 hours of internship that a normal internship would do at like what 7 at that was.
Got it.
So if administrators and university supervisor communicate on a timely manner, you're able to get that in there and do those 30 hours. Now, the conflict is if the administrator and the university supervisor does not communicate on a timely manner. I have been placed for the past 2 semesters in the middle of my semester, so now I have to crunch time within those 30 hours within a short period of time. Now, the last block, which is block 4, which is 1 semester, it is a full-time internship. So the full 16 hours, you have to be in the classroom from 7 to 9 or whatever time that school is, or you are going to be deliberating.
Thank you.
No, thank you. It's,
Yeah.
it's best to have it from those that are experiencing it so you understand
Mhm.
why we have a proposal. Yeah. All right. Move, anything else or move along? All right, we get on to page 50 where we get into Article 18 under voluntary activities. So I'll read what our proposal here is. ESP employees ESP employees attendance at each school's annual open house. Our proposal is to include parent conference day or night and or student parent engagement events is voluntary. However, the parties recognize the importance of these activities to the school community. Proposal is to, and compensatory time shall be automatically approved by the district. Therefore, ESPs who attend open house or other student parent engagement events at the request of their supervisor will be granted comp time for hours worked beyond the workday to be used or paid in accordance with 6.2. So we hear a lot of, especially the community engagement or the parent engagement events where folks have typically done this. They've volunteered, they've been invited, and in the past they've earned comp time. But what we're hearing, we've brought this up a few times, and I know you're always really willing and able to work with us to help educate a site. But what we're proposing here is that when those typically happen, as they have in the past, that those are events that are approved. Because right now the process is for these other, for the conference night engagement events, there's a process they have to go through and get it approved. And I think what's happening is that some cases they're just being told, like, we can't do it. And we've got ESPs that want to keep doing that because they have in the past. So that's where this is coming from. That again, they have to be invited, and they're
To
asking us-
clarify, so it's still the administrator that would be requesting their presence?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that's why we, at the request of the supervisor.
okay, I just wanted to
We
make
just-
sure that part, because there are
Yeah,
times,
sure.
obviously, now that we are paying out our comp
Right.
time at the end of each fiscal year. For example, as a high school principal, I might have conference night, and it's the 4th conference night of the year, and it's a ghost town. I don't need every secretary to work that event, right? I might only need 1 secretary to work that event in the office. So just to be fiscally responsible, I just want to make sure this was still only if asked at the request of the administrator.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, that's why we left that. Gina's at.
And I think that is definitely expanding the family and community engagement aspect of the school district. Paraprofessionals, parents, paraprofessionals, just important as teachers because those paraprofessionals work alongside their students on a daily basis. So in some situations where we're saying no to the paraprofessional that they're not able to stay, I think that's not keeping the relationship in regards to the parent and bridging that gap with the community engagement.
Understood. So that's why that's, you see it shall be automatically approved by the district for those events, but then we still retain at the request of their supervisor. So. All right, 52, 18.9.6 is a new language. This comes from the instructional contract, which is just on election days in Hillsborough County as determined by the Hillsborough County Supervisor of Election. No faculty or other school-related meetings shall be held beyond the normal work day. We know that's already happening in the instructional, but we wanted to mirror it here so our folks know that they can go vote too. And they should vote. All right, 18.13, 18.14 field trip expenses. So the language currently says ESCB employees assigned to chaperone field trips shall not pay any transportation or entrance fees for the trip. Our new language proposal here is that ESP employees volunteering to attend other field trips within HCPS shall be granted leave as temporary assignment to duty elsewhere. So this comes from, we've got a lot of ESP employees that may have their students somewhere, and when they go on these field trips that they're volunteering as well. So that's, it's a new concept, but we wanted to put this across the table. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, but kind of help with the rationale.
Just a little bit, I think it is that ESPs, when it comes to their students going on field trips, they don't have the same opportunity to engage with their own student at their own school. It definitely should be that they are chaperoning more than just their students, so they should be overseeing a group of students at that said school. But I think this would put a little focus on work-life balance. So ESPs are no longer saying to their own kid that they can't go to their field trip, but then they're at their own site going to field trips with their students at your work site.
And our current practice would obviously be like when I wanted to chaperone my son's 5th grade field trip to Busch Gardens, I took a personal day.
All right, yeah. All right, now we get into section 20.2, safety of students and ESP employees. This is down in 20.2.5, specifically in A. This has to do with, students being sent to the office. So the current language says school-based clerical ESP shall not be solely responsible for monitoring students who have been sent to the office for disciplinary reasons. And we would like to add that, and shall not have a student in their workspace for more than 1 hour. The goal here and the intent here is to get to a point where, and I think we talked about this at the table before, where we understand students sometimes have to be sent to the office and the staff there kind of help oversee. But we have heard reports of folks that students there for a long time. They may be spending the whole day there, and so is there something we can do to just kind of relieve that? So while they're not having to do all the monitoring themselves, if that student is in their space, that's our intent. So we're open to counters there, but we hope that we can kind of address that. All right, and then Article 27, they did not print in color, but these are just updates to the dates there in for the June 30th dates, and then just updating our signature page. So no substantive changes. And then we have our Appendix D, which is where we would house the ESP evaluation tool. And again, sorry for the crummy screenshot, but the intent is for it to just actually be the form with no changes to it. And that summarizes our language proposal.
90 total minutes, not bad.
90 minutes. So, yeah, so we know that they're, take it back. So, we know there are a few items that are tied to money, and we know that those can hold, and we know that we will have a more robust discussion about money related items and have a proposal there, but our goal was to get all of our initial proposals across, and the ball's in your court.
Okay. Well, first I want to thank Regina specifically, and because I know you did a lot of committee work with your members in order to get to this spot. So thank you for all of your work. So yeah, I think at this time we'd like to caucus and be able to have some conversations on our side to see if there's something that we want to look at today, or if it is that we want to take it and work through it and then come back. So if we can caucus and
For sure.
just give us 30 minutes and then I'll give you an update.
All right, so it's 11:33 now, so 11:03.
Sorry,
It's 10:33.
Wait, you're messing with my math there. Like, come on.
I got kicked off. Hold on, I'm trying to log back in. All right, so the district is downstairs in caucus. They had asked for an initial 30 minutes. And what they are requesting is to call the meeting for the day so that they can utilize a longer caucus time to work on our proposals, which is good. So they're down there working and want to come back with real counters. So we will work with the district to set up some future dates and keep everyone posted. So thanks for tuning in.